Welcome to this week's episode of 5. We're going to give 5 storytelling ideas for Boot Hill. Boot Hill, a Western-themed RPG that was initially published in 1975 by TSR. Boot Hill is a game that I really love. One of the most interesting aspects of it is it was the first game system to introduce the percentile dice, which many other game systems now employ in their various rule sets. The game was largely focused on gunfights and combat mechanics. The lethality and timing mechanisms used for the storytelling really meant there wasn't a lot of focus on storytelling or progression of story and character development. However, over the span of 3 different editions in 15 years, that was increasingly stronger and stronger focused on the game. Many offshoots of that game continued to work on developing more storytelling aspects and opportunities for player and character growth. However, Boot Hill, boiled down, was all about gunfighting in the Old West. One of the most interesting aspects is because of these mechanics set as the primary basis of the game, counters or miniatures and maps were very important to operating in the Boot Hill world. And while some of it was really well fleshed out, such as the combat and timekeeping aspects of the game, much of the other aspects were left wide open, such as the map. You could really place it anywhere. You had to fill in a lot of details and really create the area that the gamers were going to be in. For creative GMs, this was fantastic because it allowed you to create your own Western feel area that wasn't tied down to history as a requirement of the gameplay. You could really set it in a more fantasy era and not have metagamers really throw the wrench in the system. This was, after all, just a role-playing fantasy game set in a Western culture. While harshly criticized for a lot of the stereotypical aspects of Westerns of the time especially, good creative GMs were able to utilize the mechanics and tell a open story that was respectful to cultures and individuals in those Western time frames. While aged and dated and with many new replacements currently in the market for Western games, Boot Hill is still something that, as I grew up with, was really endearing to me, and I recommend everybody tries it. Whether that's as a one-shot in-between game sessions, if players are not able to make a schedule, or just for a change of pace for a couple of weeks to get those fantasy creative juices flowing for both player characters as well as DMs. Boot Hill is a game that you can quickly dive into with fast character creation, nothing that's really tied down into history and set. You can literally create a quick town, place it anywhere, and get playing within just a matter of minutes. And one of the most interesting things is player characters in the Boot Hill game world can really experience good, bad, and gray behaviors as they're not tied down to the tropes such as alignment. And the lethality of the game made it to where many characters didn't really progress in advance and have a bigger impact on the game world. So here are my 5 storytelling ideas for a Boot Hill game. Number 1, defend a cattle drive from rustlers. Many good Westerns are set on that cattle drive from south to north, getting the cattle to market. And one thing that all cattle drives had in common was a worry about rustlers. If you're planning a one-shot game or even just a couple sessions of Boot Hill game, a good storytelling opportunity is having your players be cowboys on a drive who have to defend from rustlers. Of course, there are tables to tie in additional things such as weather or natural disasters, any type of elemental pieces in the game, getting across a desert or through snakes, but nothing wrong with just a good old trope of having rustlers trying to steal the herd. Number 2, protect a family of homesteaders from claim jumpers. Keeping it smaller for a smaller band of your players to have to protect a homestead is more doable than having to defend a whole town or village from a band of desperados. Protecting a family of homesteaders from a claim jumper allows them to impact a small area, quickly and easily find the NPCs, won't take a whole lot of prep time, and the heroes, at the end of the day, can use the game mechanics such as range shooting, riding, and quick draw opportunities in a small and meaningful manner that really presents them as the heroes of the story. As a neutral game, possibly smaller amount of players, storytelling idea number 3 is have your players decide they need to call out the fastest gun in the territory. This doesn't really tie to good or bad, but more of a gray area. Gunslinging as a profession was really widespread in the old Western tropes, so having them prove their mettle against the fastest guns in the West would definitely make for a very interesting opportunity of them to explore the territory a little bit, have to visit a saloon, dive into some of the old tropes, call out that fastest gun, and then get down to mechanics and see who was the fastest draw. Story number 4, maybe they have to capture a group of desperados who are on the lam, hired by whether it's a sheriff who can't exceed leaving the town or being deputized by the U.S. Marshal Service. Maybe it's the Pinkertons who hire them. They have to track down and bring a band of desperados to justice. Of course, there should be a wanted dead or alive tie into it, with the biggest reward being, of course, alive so that they can stand trial. But ultimately, based on the mechanics of the game and the lethality of shootouts, it should be no surprise that some of those bandits or heroes may end up dead. Number 5, exploring some of the darker sides of the trope. If the players have to rob a stage or maybe even conduct a train robbery without getting caught. This allows the players to experience being the villains or the bad guys. They're the outlaws, and they're not penalized for playing good or bad in Boot Hill. So, again, playing right into Western tropes, having to rob a stage for the payroll or rob a bank or rob a train could be a fun tie-in to staples of the Western genre that players can immediately identify with, and again, leave it down to mechanics to determine are they going to be successful or not. Ultimately, whichever of the story ideas you utilize to play into, the biggest opportunity is at the end of the game session when the players have completed the goal set out in front of them, riding off into the sunset. There's my 5 storytelling ideas for the Boot Hill RPG. Thanks for watching our video. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to hit the subscribe button to help us grow. And here's another video that we feel you might enjoy. Until next time, help us answer the question of where will your adventures take you?